Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. And unfortunately, I had to kill Broken Heart. He stole money from me, and you never do that to the cartel. No, Broken Heart, for all I know, is still alive. I hope he's still alive. And if he's not, well, then I feel really shitty for saying that. But welcome back to the Microwave Extravaganza podcast, the only podcast proud to be sponsored by Monsanto. Remember, if you're going to get greens from anywhere, why go to some place that says they're organic? Screw them. They're Nazis. Come to Monsanto, for we want everything. We want your soul. We want your money, your family. We want everything. Give it to us. Monsanto, because you have to trust us.
I'm sure they're going to love that one. God damn it. All these goddamn jerks on YouTube. Always messing with us. They're always messing with us.
What's up?
They're always messing with us.
Guys, I really like this. It's like some it's like super omega incel with like who can barely say any words without sounding like these guys are always making fun of us.
See, I always figure it's some like ultra like the latest end of the baby boomers or like the early end of Gen Xers, where it's like the dude's finally had to like cut his hair into like like a crew cut because it's just starting to thin too much, and he's trying to he's on some still got it shit, and he's just sitting there like these goddamn guys on YouTube.
Oh yeah, he's got like a really cheap business suit and a comb over and like pours on Rogaine like it's the fucking fountain of youth.
He's probably beyond Rogaine. He's probably got all the latest shit. He works for Monsanto, man.
Oh yeah, that's right. He gets all the chemicals.
It's basically a guy who looks a hell of a lot like Jeff Flake. That's probably what we're talking about. He's like, these guys, they say all these mean things on the internet about Monsanto, and we should talk to our lawyer. Oh, they don't know who this guy Arcion. That's not his real name. Oh, well, darn. Oh, anonymity. They don't.
It sounds like
dank lols. What are dank lols? What is that a product?
Like a really lame, out of touch super villain. Oh, the dastardly YouTubers. They just keep saying mean things. Honey, by the way, how do I log into the internet again? I forgot.
You see, and then of course walks in, what's her name? What was her name? Jory or Yori?
I can't wait for them to. I can't wait for them to blame us for sending bombs to them that we never made.
But that woman Yori Kuhn or whatever it was, or Yori, the woman who got Killstream shut down.
Oh, that bitch. I
think it's Yori. I think is her first name.
We'll just call her we'll just call her wait, hold on. Yoriol.
We know, just pops in, she pops in like, oh, I know how to find them. It's like, just I mean, I love now. This is where we're at. I think it's actually, I was thinking about this earlier, and actually I was really thinking about, what to talk to you about. It's kind of good. Some of this came up. We were talking about charity earlier off air, so the audience knows. Charity work. Your host does a lot of charity work. He's a good guy. Support him for state senate when he runs. And so I was thinking about,
oh, sweetheart,
the fact that all those charity funds got pulled. Now there's the Wall Street Journal and with the help of YouTube, it, is helping take away fucking not just money out of people's mouths for the work they do, but now also charity as well. Yeah, and just the whole idea that of now this idea of sullying where money comes from for charity because you don't like the jokes, you don't like the content. There's these wild-eyed claims as if that these are, oh, this money came from like the brown shirts. Something, oh, this came from Atomwaffen or something like that. And it's
Yeah.
just, it's so preposterous. And to the point where it really is that stage of, and I really want like the audience to hear this. This is the way traitors. People who will betray your land. It doesn't matter. You might know, they might watch your house when you go out for a weekend or something like that. Like that is a mutualistic relationship they absolutely need. But if they will betray you categorically, when they are like, oh, this religion says this about this this practice of sex that blah blah. Well, they're not going out and doing anything to anyone, but I'm going to make sure that something is done about them and their thinking. And that's something that that's the issue with a lot of the left, the Democrats, the liberals, these people who are now these social justice warriors, because now they own not just the collusion of Twitter and Facebook and Alphabet with this Wall Street Journal, the Intercept. What else do we got? We got the Guardian. There's collusion there. These people are all talking to each other.
Twitter.
Twitter. Oh yes, Apple. They took down Alex Jones's. Yeah, they took down Alex Jones's shit. This is
owned by Apple.
And
Spotify is
now
owned by Apple, I think.
So now here's the beauty. Today, I'm looking through the Twitter feed, and as you and I know how the Catholic Church and just Christians in general in China. Well, get hip to this. 3 million Muslim Uyghurs have been put in re-education camps within the last 2 years.
What?
3 fucking million people to be re-educated because of their beliefs. Now, Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, they have all kinds of nothing to say about the People's Republic of China.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder why. I know. I wonder why. And then Antifa shows up places. They got the sickle and fucking star all over the place. These people are whistling past the graveyard. Doodle-doo. We don't see nothing over here. And now, and with CNN covering for Antifa, trying to make these wild-eyed claims. Oh, these people aren't communists. Salon.com. These people aren't communists. They're anti-fascists, and it's just now we're really seeing it all. It's becoming crystal clear that they will turn their backs when their goon squads finally burn the churches. That's really, they're just waiting for they just need the momentum. They need the popular support. They need the people behind them on this one. And that's why, in my view,
but they can't get that by the actions alone, because their actions are traitorous and double-crossing, backstabbing. So what do? Well, you know what? Maybe Alex Jones shouldn't be allowed to point that out. Maybe a turd-fling monkey should get blacked out. We're CNN, where we get tons of government subsidies. So fuck you if you don't like us, because even if you don't like us, go somewhere else. Well, guess what? They're privately funded. We are half privately funded. Guess who's still going to be up on the air after we tell Visa to stop processing their payments and PayPal cuts them off? Guess what's gonna happen?
Oh, that's a beautiful one. This idea that you cut people out, you cut somebody out of Visa, fucking with Gab, and cutting them out of it, and another one that's a collusion. And so you cut them out of payment, and then you go, okay, well, let's just give an example. If we were a historian in the future and go, oh, well, and then they would stop people from receiving money, and then go, Professor, do you mean like the People's Islamic Republic of Iran, oh, well, that's a little different. But weren't they mean to women? And didn't they like not like gays? Well, I guess you could say they're kind of the same in our new Marxist super future. And I mean it only makes sense in that context that they will look back and say, oh, well, these people were as hateful as Iran. And that's why Hillary Clinton wanted to bomb Iran. And it's and now more and more I'm like, the utter madness, the total technological imperialism of these people. This, as you and I were discussing, the poison of hermeticism in their minds, where they think they can be gods and make great judgments upon whole swathes of humanity because, see, they have some new thinking, and all these other people just need to catch up or go to the fucking camp, or they could starve. And that's now I'm like, every day when I'm sitting there kind of quietly doing my thing at work, where a lot of it requires me just like taking a long time to do one job with my hands, that a lot of this rolls over. And I'm like, no, you're going too far. You're thinking too much about this. And then I'll see some story like the Muslim Uyghurs putting in those camps. And I'm like, and nobody's talking about it. All
Oh,
these
yeah.
people, they love the Rohingya. We heard about the Rohingya. Oh, the Rohingya. How could the Burmese do this? You mean Burma, which is like notoriously violent,
Oh yeah, sure.
but then it's like, oh, but this person was super cool who became the president. We were all really happy, but now they're mean to Muslims. And it's like, well, I mean, you do know where you got your cell phone from, right? Do you know what those people did to the Tibetans? Do you even
Yeah,
know what they do to the Christians there? Like,
yeah.
they take people's fucking kidneys out, like, come on now.
Like they make Russia because they make Russia look tame towards the gays.
Oh,
Like
totally. That's actually one I gotta admit, I was thinking about that, where I actually had to make this comparison. We are talking all this shit about Russia. The Democrats have everybody Russia this, Russia that. Russia built one of the biggest mosques in Europe in front of the Kremlin, so that it was in front of one of the biggest churches. The church is bigger, but it was in front of one of the biggest churches in
because fuck yeah,
Europe.
Christianity, woohoo, Christians.
Exactly. And the whole idea is Putin wanted to make the point of, in this land, you are allowed to worship. That, I mean, I was like, that's right. Like, like,
That's
in our land, we will protect your capacity to worship, and that might not be true where you all are from, but in this land, it is Christian and you are protected by us. And
that's
and
right.
and that
That's fucking
it's
right.
that part yeah, I was like, God damn, dude, this fool, damn, ice cold, dog, ice cold,
I have
and it was
some of Putin's policies. I have problems with some of Putin's policies because let's be honest, he is more authoritarian than a lot of other
yes, yes.
people, and he definitely still has some communist leanings. I mean, he's a former KGB agent, and I'm not a huge fan of Dugin. I think I've expressed that point many times over because I don't like the Hegelian long run-on sentences that he goes into, where it will take him like 5 pages to explain a very simple concept. Especially
Yeah.
since a lot of Greek philosophers were very, very plain and simple in their language, but their ideas were astounding.
Yeah.
But with that being said, fuck my boy Putin and doing that shit. I mean, out of all the countries you would expect, the former fucking Soviet Union, the former Soviet Russia, the one that we were scared was going to push to the button at any point, the one that took over half of Europe, that used China as a buffer zone, that openly sent KGB agents into the United States to full on fight secretly. CIA agents, by the way, that really did happen. They literally would kill each other in the streets and make it look like it had nothing to do with either government.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That country just said, hey, we Christians will protect you Muslims. While China is basically saying, you're cattle and you can't live here and be Muslim. Sorry, it's not how it works. And
and the way that they're doing it is that the camps are spread out all across Xinjiang province. So it really is you know, for just it's just this sheer efficiency system. You know, they probably just herd them into buses and shit and then drive them off. You know, you do you they figure out you've said something or done something or they and off in the van. You know, and now somebody is getting back to me on Twitter over and over again about this because they're doing a deep dive and this person's really having a hard time with what they're finding. They're like, this is very disturbing shit. And I was kind of like I already knew what they had done to the Tibetans. So I was like, "Oh man, you know, I just can't even fucking imagine." And I was like,
Oh,
"Thanks for doing this research." You know, it's like yeah, I mean like with the Tibetans like say when they would clear out a monastery, they would force monks to rape the nuns.
oh my God.
Yeah, that's a very common thing for communists to do no matter the religion is to get the priests to rape the nuns at gunpoint.
Oh yeah, but you know what's even worse? Like, first off, let's be honest. Asian countries are probably the most racist of them all. Like, nobody wants to talk about just how much they believe in like a pure Asian race. Like, nobody fucking talks about that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also we conceive of that part of the world very much post World War II. Like that part of the world was as it was really in about the latest 1800s to the early 1900s. Like that's the closest we could get. Like stuff like Jet Li's Once Upon a Time in China series. Like that sort of we could get an idea of what it was like when there's like Europeans floating around in the coastal cities and
Yeah.
that that it was that the Chinese spoke wildly different dialects at that time. So there would be people who literally could not understand each other that would mix in the cities, but once you got out in the countryside, like everybody kind of knew their group, you know, and it was a lot of the stuff like from Europe. And I really actually like to kind of get across to people the war between the nationalists, the royalists, and then the eventually the communists. And so the what we now call the Kuomintang, who moved to Taiwan, and so the Levelers is another name for them. That group, what this is very similar to Europe, where they ironed culture flat, and anyone who can remember how things were most likely starved. Fields were burned, fields were salted. Um, so much you couldn't get anything from one place to another. Rivers were poisoned by through just sheer bodies, you know, and you know, because you could throw the bodies elsewhere, but if you throw them in the river, you get to poison everybody downriver.
Oh yeah.
And that makes it much easier for you to then take territory. And it was just and it really just went like that. And like once read this one book where a guy was describing just going across regions that were once wildly verdant and fertile, and they had just been made into just they were just a
Ban-
dead zone, you know, and there was this war for a day on the train, you know, across some province.
Yeah. Oh, and even more scary, let's be honest. This is something that nobody also wants to talk about. Not just how extremely violent and ruthless most Asian cultures and Asian people who have warred with each other are. Like they really do believe you need to completely destroy and finish off your everyone once you've killed their leaders. Like you just pretty much wipe everybody else out. The Japanese like, well, everyone says, "Oh yeah, Pearl Harbor, that was so messed up, bro. Why did you?" No, no, not Pearl Harbor, but Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Oh, why did we bomb those? You know, my response is, I don't feel bad for them because so few people, like, there's this like one video by I think CGP Grey. I don't know, remember, but it was like the history of Japan or something like that. It was like really really fast, and like the Emperor of Japan says we would just and we like damn king, and then it says like in like parentheses, and they do some rapes. Like it's so subtle, but nobody acknowledges just how brutal it was. It was like it was like. It, I kid you not. There was
Oh
a
yeah.
ambassador. There's a Nazi ambassador to Japan that went to China, which, by the way, at the time, China was a whole bunch of different provinces, including Nanking. And he literally would just walk around at night, stopping rapes in progress. They even have like entire memorials at multiple places throughout China. They're like super nice hotels and memorials just dedicated to him because of how many people the Japanese fucking raped and murdered. They forced brother on brother, sister on sister, vice versa. Every combination that you don't want to ever think of, and more. It would like regularly rape everybody. They used bodies of like people who surrendered as bayonet practice. And the biggest reason why is because when the Chinese surrendered, the Japanese are like, whoa, our policies die before surrender. You guys suck. We're gonna kill you. Like, we're gonna torture the fuck out of you. They would force people to drink like gasoline and then shoot them with like a lit bow and watch them explode. Not even kidding. This shit is like so unbelievably uncomfortable. You look at the Nanking murders, and by the way, they were massacres. You know, there were babies that were force-fed grenades and thrown at mothers. There were like priests and as you said, nuns that, as Donovan alluded to earlier, but it was just awful. There's even only one movie I think recently that was even near accurate to it with Christian Bale in it. And by the way, the trials, I shouldn't be laughing about this, but it's so cartoonishly ridiculous. You almost either have to yell or laugh. When they were being tried, by the way, they couldn't go after the highest of officers, but by the way, so they had to go after second highest and lower officers. When they were trying them, one of the arguments for the defense was, you know, like the prosecution is saying, like, you did some 1,000 rapes, personally did some 1,000 rapes, as in like not just ordered but did it yourself. And they said, well, it was more like 700, not so much 1,000. That was their argument. Their argument was, well, I only completely violated a few hundred women. So you can imagine they were immediately shot. So when people say that, you know, when people have such a Cliff Notes understanding of history, especially Asian history, and just especially Nanking, I think there should be like entire sections taught in school. But nowadays we don't talk about this. We always say, oh, well, it was completely unjustified to drop those bombs, even though the Japanese policy was die before surrender. And if we had firebombed them, it would have caused just as much damage. Like, so I'm sorry I had to keep going on about that, but yeah, so people know about that.
Well, and actually, it's interesting you talked about the highest generals, because one of the key things that we did have the original plan. The original plan was to set the bomb off right in front of the fucking Imperial Castle, so that they could see, and like the shock wave would hit everything. It wouldn't be a direct hit. It would be just far enough away that they would understand like the power of this. But then the argument was that such a demonstration, especially if say it didn't work, was one thing. If it doesn't work, then I mean they will have almost completely intact, you know, partially made, partially destroyed, you know, nuclear weapon, you know, and they could take, you know, they could use it, they could reverse engineer it. But then the other thing was also they were like, we actually do have to inflict real damage so that they really believe it. But outside of that, that's all I really know about any of the kind of stuff that's in the background of all that.
Yeah. But dude, how much you know about Nanking, like the rape of Nanking?
Oh, no, that I was very aware of. Yeah. That came up a lot in you know, in the Bay Area with the Chinese community. That was not passed over in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. To this day, there have been so many infanicides that were the results. And like a lot of people in China will not even admit, because they're very, you know, much about decency and stuff like that, a lot of them will not even admit that there's any Japanese blood in them at all because of how ashamed they are.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that. Like, yeah, I've been curious about that kind of thing. Like, what if there's anybody who has been in like the realm of, say, the Chinese government doing genomic experiments, and that when they look through look through genes, that they find, specific clusters that they're like, wait a second, this cluster means that there was this many fathers in this region that fathered a lot of people, and that kind of thing, like, and very recently, very, 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 very recently, because that would show up, and that. Oh, so earlier you had you had brought up the JQ.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been people who've like only typed this online. They're like, so what do you have to say about it? And I'm always kind of like, well, what part of what part exactly do you mean? Like, like, I don't, like, what part of the question? Like,
Yeah. Well, anyway, here, I do want to play this though, just because I know before we get into this Hiroshima style bomb of a question, I do want to make people laugh. Oh shit.
what the? Oh.
Let's bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, bomb, just like Japan. Bomb, bomb, Iran, piggy crack. Bomb, bomb, Iran. We'll turn the rocks into pebbles, the pebbles into sand. Let's bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran. Here at the dance, trying to advance. Nothing else is working, so I thought I'd take a chance. Bomb Iran. Just like Japan, we'll turn the rocks into pebbles, the pebbles into sand. Bomb Iran, bomb, 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 bomb Iran. Legal amnesty's through, found it wouldn't do. Running out of money, so I'm trying something new. Bomb Iran, just like Japan. Bomb Iran, we'll turn the rocks into pebbles, the pebbles into sand. Bomb Iran, bomb, 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 bomb Iran. Let's bomb, bomb, bomb. Bomb, bomb, Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran.
Why don't we just ask Osama bin?
That you find that pretty funny.
That actually you kind of reminded me of something. Okay, I bet you didn't see this story. One of the princes of Saudi Arabia, he's like some 50-year-old guy who doesn't live in Saudi Arabia. He's in exile. He said a coup is imminent against Mohammed bin, was it Salman? Yes, bin Salman. And that he is going to overthrow the government of Saudi Arabia because that guy's gone too far.
The Kingdom of Saudi?
Yes.
The Saudi
the present because the king is retired or in abdication or whatever. He's left it all to Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Bin Salman, of course, hung all his brothers upside down in a hotel and said, you all are going to give me a bunch of money and you're going to go along with my plan. And they were like, or he goes, of course I'm going to kill you. And he said, okay, you could take my money and leave me alive. And so, everybody's got a palace, but they've got to shut the fuck up and let him do his job. And the king left it all to him, totally changed the lineage that it goes usually through the mother's line. Now it's through the father's line. And he put his son in there, who is former Minister of Defense, bin Salman. So some guy, one of the many princes, he's like, I have a plan with other people, and we are going to overthrow Saudi Arabia. He makes this big statement, right? Then he says, and we would love help from the United States and the United Kingdom. Because I'm like, yeah, I bet you would. And so it's basically.
And I have to ask, do you think by help he means we will tell you who to kill, and then you do it for us.
Right. And note what's going on.
How many American soldiers is this going to cost us?
Yeah, and note what's going on. That fucking Erdogan is totally in the shitter. His that Turkey is all sorts of fucked. The Houthis are about to tap out because they just can't take the pounding from the Saudis. And that's another one I recently found out about. The Houthis are once again one of these groups that our government supported. And so guess what's on their fucking flag?
Oh, I wonder what.
The whole Allah Akbar, and then death to America. Don't take it literally. Literally, this is what they say. Don't take it so literally. And then death to Israel. That's their official flag. The Houthi movement happens to be named after an ethnic group known as the Houthis. The Houthis that are fighting Saudi Arabia are a bunch of students. They're students who don't like capitalism, are somehow aligned with Iran, somehow were okay during the Obama administration. Who was trying to make a deal with Iran to give them a lot more nuclear capacity with the help of the EU? And now everyone's screaming, don't hurt the Houthis, because all of their plans have gone tits up. And it took like only about 10 minutes of diving for me to be like, wait a second, a student movement? And these aren't even necessarily the ethnic Houthis. It's a student movement named after a guy named Houthi. Okay, we've gotten fucking bamboozled again. This is like the Rohingya. Oh, these people are okay. You guys are being mean. And that there's some dirty fucking shit going on that we don't know about, or it's like some border invasion thing like George Soros is doing to us right now. That turns out like the Houthis are some squeeze being put on apparently the Sunni, so that we could keep the Sunni from like getting their shit together and making the Middle East work.
Yeah, that's something nobody wants to admit to, is that, a lot of the fighting between the Sunnis and the Shiites is just instability in general. And they're so disorganized, and there's so many mini ethnic groups that they're just trying to reorganize. And these people are shit disturbers. And I'm like, wait, no, hold on. We like it when things are a little crazy because we get to do what we want when there is an order.
Bingo.
Yeah. You really start to see through. You really start
and then it really makes you understand the whole thing of how the Bush family associated with a system of German fraternities, that the one here is called the Skull and Bones, and that it seems to be dedicated to power and weird ritualism. And they align themselves with these dictators and cause chaos. They don't cause order. They don't cause growth. They have this weird organization in a big pentagonal building, and they cause chaos. And I think about it more and more. Like the more I listen to Jay Dyer, the more I'm like, I just am sitting there going, I now see the Matrix even more clearly. Like I'm just like,
Donovan, are you the one?
No, definitely not. No, it's just that moment where you suddenly just stop cold. It just goes over you when you. And honestly, this is something I'm wondering if I've never really expressed this to anybody. It's when you suddenly look and you see that you're like, that's not just a shadow. There's something in it. There's deeper and deeper evil, and every once in a while you suddenly see it skitter off, and you're like, holy crap, that's how evil is.
That's not a moon, that's a space station.
Yeah, I mean, like, so there we go. That's no moon. Oh my god, you nailed it. Yes. Oh, you nailed it.
Oh,
That's no moon. I know. Yeah.
that's that's a diversity space station.
And I love actually, and it I gotta admit, like so many because that was generally a well told original part of that story. The dialogue was something, but I mean, but that idea of, and as you finally see it, it pulls on you. And just this, I just think about that, like, and how the moon of Endor with all these cute little teddy bears, that has this thing that's protecting this device of pure evil, and that it's the throne of evil, and that these creatures can't even conceive of what's going on. All they know is that these characters in armor are irritating and shoot at them. And I just think sometimes I think about that with Democrats. They're just like Ewoks.
They have
Yeah.
no idea. They're just
They have no idea. And sometimes you just don't want them to know. I am kind of looking forward to the day where they're playing. I won't say I can't, of course, on YouTube say whose skulls they would be playing drums on. The various members of former administrations or such like, but I mean, but that, it would be nice.
You probably say that on BitChute.
I know, totally, yes. But it would be nice, we'll have that moment, where we all smile, give each other that hero smile, and there's the Ewoks like, yup, 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 and it's like, yes, you all didn't know how evil Obama was, but now you'll never have to worry about him again,
Well, the funniest thing about it all, let's think about this, is I really do like the analogy that you use, because I never thought of it like that, but now that I look back at it, yeah, like when the Millennium Falcon is being sucked towards like an attractor beam. Wait a minute, I'm like, wait. Now that you mention it, it does make a whole lot more sense. You really just blew my mind. That's metaphorical storytelling, saying, oh, we're being sucked closer to this Death Star. Dead stars are black holes usually. We're being sucked towards an abyss of evil. Like, you can't turn away from this evil. That actually rings a pretty scary bell in my head. The symbolism right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's when there's a good story, it's a good story, and there's those things that you'll just see at different stages of life, that it's like, I love that there's all you young guys on YouTube who will bring this stuff up, because those stories were so, like, such a big deal, and you had a totally kind of different reference point. And then every once in a while, like, especially Razor Fist will sometimes say something, just boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, holy, what? Well, I guess you have like a degree in that, so that makes sense. You would have such insight,
We were going to talk about we were going to talk about the.
Oh yes, yes, yes. To the point. To the point.
Oh, there we are. Ah!
Uh-oh, look at us. Look at us.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna stop screen sharing for now. But so when it comes to the Jewish question, first off, let's hear what your thoughts about it. Most of all, your thoughts about the globalist part of it and the communist leanings of the Jews.
Oh, okay. Because I had brought up the thing, Tikkun. So, and actually, this is really important, that if people have never heard this before, you will hear about this thing called Kabbalah, and it's supposed to be all secret and super mega evil, and it's all, and okay. A big part of this that I had to put together through a lot of different research, a lot about Kabbalah gets put together by where a bunch of people study. So there will be a quote unquote school of Kabbalah. So it'll be named after somebody like Luria, Isaac of Luria, Lurianic Kabbalah, or I think his name is Yosef Frank, possibly, is so the Frankist Kabbalists, or Shabbatai Tzvi, and stuff like that. So
Joseph,
there was,
Joseph sounds a bit Russian.
yeah, I forget. Well, but remember, that's how it would be pronounced also in I believe German as well. And I think Frank was
Yeah.
a German, or he was in the what would be Germanic states of that era. I forget where in. But the thing is though, so they'll form these schools, right? Now, as Christians, most of our history, this doesn't exist quite the same way. There's really important churches, but most of the time this becomes what we call orders. And after the orders came then the universities. So that's where Christians would form their ideas, but then they had to check them with a central, they had to get them orthodox, all in agreement.
That's why Constantine had all of those different people figuring out which parts of the Bible were canon and which ones were kind of made up.
Yeah, exactly. And so Kabbalah is absolutely understood as the realm of speculation, so as to sort of make the because when they encountered the Greeks with philosophy, they didn't have the same thing, and the Greeks dominated. The Greeks dominated everything, and they were like, well, the Greeks really shit on us, and then they keep laughing at our religion. And so they had to come up with sort of to fill in holes of different parts of scripture and stuff like that, and different ideas. So there's some stuff in Kabbalah that's kind of what it seems to be. Then there's no Terracon, Grammaticon, stuff like that. So they filled it in through stories that came from all the different parts of where Jews lived, like Babylon or Egypt or in Greece. And so that's why you get this fusion of images. And so with Tikkun Olam, the whole thing about the fall of Adam, they say that the way that the world is created in 10 parts, that's in 10 lines. It's 10 lines. So that's a descriptor, or it's a parallel to the 10 Sephirot, the spheres, or these qualities of God. And these 10 qualities, the idea is that the story of Genesis, while somewhat literal, it's the only way for a human to understand something happening technically before the world is truly like the way it is now, where it's real and hard and cold and you die. Before you died, before there was death, this is how the world was. And they're like, well, but when he created the world, how do you describe all this stuff? So they said there's these 10 Sephirot. They sort of were like bubbles of glass. Yeah, like big bubbles of glass that got inflated full of breath, all within one another. So you have one big bulb, and then you have more and more bulbs within them. And all these bulbs keep filling full of God's light, because he needed a space to make creation in. That's their big argument, because they had to deal with the philosophers. So they said, so he made light. That light then becomes a space. It is a space, and outside of it would be darkness. And then what happens is God is too powerful to be contained. That would be the theological thing. They would say, wait. This story is getting crazy because you can't contain God. So therefore, these 10 things shatter. And the idea is this is parallels the fall of Adam. And that the story of Genesis and Adam and stuff sort of parallels that this is what creation ends up becoming sort of made of, is this shattered qualities of God. So then you have Tikkun Olam, the repairing of the world, where you take all these shattered pieces that are in everything and in everybody, and you give them back to God. You make them repent or return to God. So this idea seems to have been something that goes back long enough that the repentance is obviously some check from Orthodox Judaism in some way, where they said, wait, but you always got to go back to God. They said, exactly. When everything's shattered, it's all still God. There is nothing but God. So you got to take the godly aspect in everything, and through prayer and holy works and holy action and holy life, it will return back to God. And this idea, of course, is supernatural. This is supernatural. This is this. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, of course, because we deal with science, but this is the spiritual world they're talking about. They say it shouldn't make sense because it's the spiritual world. They said, do angels make sense? And people would be like, well, I said, no, because you're not supposed to see them. That's the point. They're in the spiritual world. And that's how God operates and runs everything. He's running things in a world that we can't see because we're made of flesh. So this is how they tied a lot of they fill in a lot of holes in a lot of theology with Kabbalah. And it took a long time for this to all become one smooth theory, in a sense. And it's a lot of times the best people you could ever find talking about it are more people who look at it as a form of philosophy rather than legitimate theology. And so that's where it went horribly wrong for the Western world. To repair the world, well, the world is broken. Well, where will you find all these broken pieces? Oh, well, you'll find them because there'll be people who do things that are mean and cruel, like Nimrod. Oh, well, Nimrod was cruel to us, and the Goys are cruel to us. And it just logically follows that you got to find out a way of repairing the world because these people keep fucking with you in their history. And now, eventually, when science comes around, and there's more than just Marx as far as socialists, there's other people, were predecessors, but basically this concept has been floating around medieval Europe. This is like 1300s thinking. It's like 1200s. So Christians ran into this. This is in Christianity now in various forms. We just don't know it. And we just don't think of it because nobody's ever explained Tikkun Olam to a lot of people. And it kind of makes sense to a Christian where they're like, yeah, well, I kind of could see that argument, but it's a little speculative. It seems like it would lend itself to a lot of making magical spells to raise the sparks magically from, I don't know, demons of the underworld, a la the OTO or Aleister Crowley or something like that, and you see where I'm going with this, that it reintroduces medieval Jewish magic to some degree. And of course, we look at the 1800s when socialism was all the rip-roaring rage, also with the same type of people who would be in an order of magic.
Wow.
And it's a view of the world that's from metaphysics. It's a type of theological metaphysics that the world is broken. Now, you could see how somebody who's, say, like a Calvinist might hear this and be like, this doesn't sound exactly wrong, but it certainly is Jewry, so they can meet on the brokenness part of the world, the fallenness of man, but they might not have the same, because of course this requires this could require a variety of things like good works. What is it? Well, works alone, my friend, so for Jewish society, they're like, okay, well, you don't get it. You obviously don't understand the import of what we're doing here. No, this has to be works. This has to be prayer. You have to make people change their thinking so that they will repair the world as well. Such as, don't you all know there's an island of garbage in the Pacific Ocean? We need to do something about that. And you go, okay, well, let's go to this garbage island and clean it up. And then we'll recycle and we'll do all this stuff. Now, if you try to go to Garbage Island, you won't find it because there is no island of garbage in the Pacific Ocean. There's lots of garbage that sometimes clusters. And there's this real weird way that some people did some bad math, and they said it was the size of Texas. It was an island, the size of Texas. You walk on it. It has life forms or something. I don't know, but but think about, oh, okay, so all the people involved in environmentalism, isms, the modern isms are a big part of this. Because the world's broken. So you need to be dedicated. How will I be dedicated? I will fight for the environment. And my friend over here, he will fight for the women's. And my friend over there, he will fight for the blacks. And my friend over there will fight for the Asians. My friend over there will fight against all of the white penis. And together we'll form Voltron. I mean,
that was great. I love how you ended that. And together we're Voltron. Voltron. He is super progressive.
Exactly. And now, of course, yes. Now he'll just, hey, a giant dildo. Is what he'll be waving around, or some giant magic wand. He'll
a crotchless pants.
Voltron, and
wearing like a leather police hat and having a baton, be like, "Hey, I'm Voltron. It's super hot out here."
So the thing that I think, like, with that is, okay. So all kidding aside, this for people that did understand an ancient, they are literally the story we get from Tolkien touches on this in a lot of his stuff. He'll put this in the lore of a once great land, this castle that had been abandoned.
Like the dwarf. I think the dwarves are.
Yes, actually, that's the best example. That is absolutely one of the best example I think of all. Yes, Stefan brought that up. That's so quite obvious with the dwarves.
Yeah, they have the big beards that they rip out to show mourning, like how Jews would rip off their clothes.
Yes, and that they brag of the mighty, and they call it a mine. Moria, even Moria, Mount Moriah. I mean, it was so many of those parallels. I love it. And so that view of they look back and they still have the Torah. They still have it. They've built a fence around it. They've kept it secret from the outsiders, that nobody knows. And this is a language it took after the Egyptian captivity to form itself completely. So the form it's written in, it was, that we have earlier versions that are written different. The Psalms are in different orders and stuff. So it's like they finally kind of get it all together, and they're under Greek rule, and they're looking back on all this. And then as the eons go on, where they keep losing, they just keep getting crushed, and then the Romans utterly smash them.
And, yeah, the Romans were brutal as fuck.
Yeah, and scattered everywhere. That I can understand this idea of that their children are hearing the stories of dominant people, the winners. Everywhere they go, these people are the winners, and they're guests. These other people are hosts. The hosts insist on you knowing their stories. So it's like, how do you fill it? How do you make Moses make sense to when everybody understands these Persian deities? So you've got to try to work with what's happening to your people as it's happening. So they become insular. Some places they don't become insular. Some places like like Turkey or Persia or something like that, they kind of have thriving communities that people know. Oh yeah, no, those are the Jews over there. No, they're just different, and then people go on their way.
And people
because some places people, the peoples themselves simply understood, well, are you obeying the rules? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, and you worship some god who lives someplace. Okay, I don't care about that. All right, pay the taxes. Oh, all right. You paid on time. You're paying early for the next round. Excellent. You guys are all right. Later, and so
wait. Hold on a sec. Did you just pay all of your taxes not only on time, but did you actually overpay? And now you're building 5 new schools. You just bought out all of our dying businesses, and now you own everything, and you're giving us huge tax break. Yeah, okay. Well, here's a seat right here for you, sir. We'll get you some bread and some wine.
Yes, totally. And so you end up seeing like at times where finally this insular community thrives. And when they thrive, all these ideas that really had just been sort of whispered start coming out. So once the German people are amazing. They're just simply amazing. And I want to make sure I just always make sure the Germanic peoples were fucking amazing because they ran into the Romans. The Romans had writing. And once they finally, were bludgeoned each other enough, the German kings were like, writing stuff down is fucking handy. I want you to teach all my sons this language. And then from there, they succeeded to become a more and more and more advanced people who then brought writing to almost any group of people that they encountered. And those people then would end up having a writing system to write down their language. And so the Jews thrived eventually in the Germanic states once you had rulers that were actually pretty cool with them. And there was then like lots of conversions as well and stuff like that. But then you had people like Frank or these various Kabbalists or people had sort of more wild-eyed ideas. And that and it's just one of those things that it's at some point when you let a garden thrive, there's going to be weaker plants or weeds. And there's going to be ideas that are going to be somewhat poisonous or totally poisonous, or you don't know when they might become poisonous. But we wouldn't have, let's think about this. We wouldn't have the Matrix without Kabbalah. We wouldn't have a number of movies. Actually, Constantine, that movie with Keanu Reeves, without it. There's a lot of ideas from sci-fi and comic book characters that would not make any sense unless ideas and imagery from Kabbalah had been introduced. And so this has already weaved itself into Christendom. And Christians just need to start getting back to then what are the fundamental principles of American Western Christianity that will keep us away from communism? And this weird idea of we need to become one giant global tribe, which that's not possible. That's disordered. It doesn't make sense.
Oh, I got to ask though. So everything you just explained, is this like, especially with the diaspora of the Jews and the whole fucking, like in the places where they were quiet, they oftentimes, just fucking owned everything and they were really well liked. But everywhere that they fought back, they got the shit beaten out of them. Does that give them like kind of the idea that, oh, well, we felt that victimization all the time, and so we don't like winners? Do you think that's kind of where some of that comes from, like the idea of a one world government is kind of the idea, well, we're going to create a one world government because we want to heal the earth and we need to do it right.
Now here's and actually this is kind of on the positive end, the Hebrew people have been notoriously well known for keeping children who fundamentally were handicapped alive. And why this would be notorious would be that this was noted by people who, of course, fed their children to Moloch. And why would you feed healthy children? You feed the ones that you are least likely to survive. I mean, let's just be honest. That just makes fucking sense, And so,
well, I'm sorry, I don't get it. Wait, what did you say?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. That probably makes sense. They probably weren't like the statues of Moloch that they would that the not the Philistines and such Canaanites would put babies in the hands of Moloch, would burn them and stuff like that. Well, the Hebrews didn't do that.
Oh yeah.
The Hebrews would keep their invalids alive, and that this becomes a notorious thing about them, that they're not like other groups of people that simply shed their weak. And so this eventually becomes something that, say, in Tikkun Olam, well, we do this now. We as Christians now in the Western world, we would never consider. I mean, it just just the very idea that you would in some way like get rid of those who were retarded or something, some kind of birth defect that we spend inordinate amounts of money. And now think about this: what hospitals, the Jewish hospitals, spend inordinate amounts of money to save invalid children. This is a fundamental cultural view that God would want you to do that because they're so weak. It doesn't matter the expense. And that it's because you must do this thing that's a supernaturally good deed, or else the world stays broken. So that's the good side. Let's look at the good side of it. Now let's look at the negative.
Oh boy.
The negative could be, well, we can't jail drug addicts. It doesn't matter if this drug addict menaces your neighborhood, just is constantly scaring people at the local park, says vulgar things, maybe craps craps places. It's him. He's crapping places. It's like, he'll go through your garbage, and leave it all over the place. You're like, God damn it, that goddamn junkie. I know it's him. I know it's that guy. Now we keep advocating for all kinds of treatment. You need to treat him. You need to send him to treatment. There's a halfway house, and then he gets more treatment and this and that, because you see, sending him to prison won't solve his addiction problem, is what the argument is. He'll stay broken. You need to try something whose chances at working are almost supernaturally impossible. You need to send him back over and over again to get methadone. He will. Don't worry. He'll stop taking the OxyContin.
Eventually.
He will.
Eventually.
He will. Yes, eventually. He will stop doing Oxy and drinking Sparks all night and shitting on your fucking right in front of your car door, so that you have to walk up and there's nothing you can do. You have to get in like the passenger side, because he's shat in front of your goddamn car door. What kind of maniac does something like this? And you don't want to try to get the shit on your tires, so you're trying to back up all carefully and stuff. This is the kind, and so that's the, and you're like, well, we should just arrest this goddamn guy. And who's the journalist who says that you're a monster?
Oh,
so
his name ends in Stein for some reason.
And it's that's the bad side, and it's this part of us that's cynical, and it's like, oh, why does it got to be like this? Well, but it's also that it appeals to the Anglo-Saxon puritanical do-gooder, because the Puritans also felt all you've got to do is teach this person enough scripture, and you just make them disciplined. Now, of course, the Puritans also might tie you to a fucking, pole, and once you're exhausted, you're sure enough not going to get up to anything. You're going to be damn thankful for everything you get after that. It's like they might lash you for dancing, but you will be very disciplined, and you will no longer have the problems you have now. Now, of course, nowadays, because we're of course supposedly we're much more civilized people, would never do something like that anymore.
It's not in public.
Yeah.
But there might, but you can pay someone if you're into that kind of thing. But that's beside the point. Go on.
Well, and so I would say a lot about the communism, that how this develops into communism. that this was just miraculously sensible to people in the early 1900s, after seeing various events of the late 1800s form into war in 1915. That by the time you start getting to the 1920s, it's so many people are so assured that socialism can work. And to a great extent, the idea, people want to say, oh, but the National Socialism and this socialism and that socialism. Well, Mussolini had Jews in his movement, and because to them they were Italian. Yes, they were Jewish, but they were Italian, and the religion and race thing simply didn't matter because it was patriotic and socialist. It was once the SS took over that the race laws came in, and everything went quite horribly. And so with Mussolini, he really didn't give a shit about any of that. He hated hardcore international socialists because they were disloyal fundamentally to Italy. When the Italian soldiers came back from World War I, the socialists attacked in the streets veterans, going home with their gear on, and saying that they were oh shit, what was the term? I'm forgetting. It doesn't matter. But they would
Black
beat
shirts?
what?
Black shirts?
No. No. So Mussolini formed that. The black shirts are what he forms when he says, I'm proud of the veterans. And he stands for Italy. He stands for the veterans. And the socialists said, we don't give a fuck if you're the high grand poobah of socialism. You're the biggest thing since Karl Marx. We don't give a fuck. You're out. And they kick him out of the Socialist Party. And he's like the biggest, he's the most worldwide well-known advocate for socialism at the time, next to, of course, Adolf fucking Hitler. This guy's, both of them are appearing on Time over and over and over again. There's people who wrote jazz lyrics to fucking Mussolini.
Oh my God.
I swear to God.
Were there like black people writing that? I would just love the irony.
Actually, no. It was a white writer. It was a rag that was written by a white writer. But yeah, it was. But I mean, that was it was ragtime music. It was fundamentally Southern black music that was being produced, by all kinds of people and then sold all over the world because it was modern. It was the modern world, socialism, science, Hugo Boss uniforms, it was, Volkswagen, Deathmobiles, I mean, this is science, baby, and these people like they had
peace.
What?
No. I said, and soon to come, Truck of Peace tour.
I know, totally. And think about to some degree, there was enough bounty, there was enough freedom, because now in this is post all the royal revolutions. So, there's no royalty to keep Jews down. So, they're joining normal, literate, urban society. In the early 1900s, you could see in country after country, you could see Jews, Jewish rabbis walking around and in some city with like soldiers from that part of the going off to wherever they're going off to, or doing whatever they're doing. And lots of photos around that era of time. So they had just kind of melded into modern scientific society quite easily. And of course, socialism spoke to a huge amount of that community. The idea of the resentment, that was something Luke Ford brought up. And he said that is definitely something that comes far more out of Eastern Europe. And the closer you get to the Pale, the more you encounter that mentality, that the goys are always going to just beat you up and take your shit because they have more. They have more numbers.
Those who don't know, because I know we made jokes saying the goyim must not be allowed to talk or something like that. But The goyim is a term used by Jews for non-Jews. That's what it basically means. So when people say the goyim or goys, they're always talking about people who, and it can be kind of derogatory depending on the context, but it's just for, you know, somebody who is outside, an outsider, and they've always seen a lot of outsiders, especially in Eastern Europe, as being untrustworthy, people who are going to do what the Romans did to them, the Greeks, the Egyptians. You know, I mean, that's what Moses' story was of, you know, freeing his people from Pharaoh's wrath, and you know, the Hebrews being en masse slaughtered. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and pogrom was something that, you know, especially in the earliest 1900s, pogrom was something that a lot of people were running from, and it was very real. And now this is where you do get to see the different communities, where you get a story, say, paralleled in Disney's that Mouse Fievel.
Fido.
That what is that? It's that he's a mouse, but it's obviously supposed to be an Eastern European Jew,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he
that's
moved
Fido.
to
That's
America.
Fido.
Oh, okay, there we go. And so that character in that story, that ends up becoming like the, you know, you could very much see that this is the New York story of the Eastern European, you know, Jewish family in that community. And then the as opposed to what a lot of people will bring up with the bankers, quote unquote. Well, what you're talking about there are English and German and Dutch Jewish people, Netherlanders. So these are people who are far more accustomed to the puritanical people, Calvinists, Catholics, especially in, say, the Netherlands. Netherlands is one of the wildest, freest places that ever could have been in about this in the 1700s. No, the Puritans moved there first, and they said that their young men were being led astray and being led to drinking and dancing and gambling. So they moved to fucking New England.
Oh my God! These people, their bodies sway so beautifully, and their breasts and their beer, and oh, it's so wonderful. No, with myself.
Yeah, totally. And now, and also remember this. So at that time, that's where you then get the formation of really that's the financial power. That's the Dutch West Indies Company. All of that is starting from there, and that's where you get the true. That's where everything becomes this idea of the sort of international Jewish conspiracy. See, you know, that's where now you get the real successful banking endeavors and trading endeavors, because, well, there's Jews everywhere.
They're in your trees. They're in your freezer. They're
You
in
know,
your toilet.
you go to the colony at Delaware. There's a handful. But you go to New York when it's first a colony, New Netherlands, there's a lot of Jews. You go to, say, New France.
Wait, is that what New Jersey is? Wait, what are the New Netherlands?
Oh, so that's what becomes New York after yeah.
Okay.
And so New Netherlands, because it was just a corporate outpost, that's all it was. They didn't care who lived there. Just don't break the fucking law. Property is property. How you obtain it, this is the law. You pay money, it's yours. Don't make us fuck with you. You know, and you could live there. So New York, within only being around, I think, less than like 150 years, had no less than something like 18 languages spoken, and there was no, I don't even think it had like 4,000 residents yet.
Oh my God. Well, that really explains where Yiddish comes from and the stereotype of the classic New York Jew. Oi!
Well, the fact that so
Hot out
many
here.
well, the fact that so many people who, no matter who they are in New York, have all sorts of phrases that people will say if you don't live in New York and they say something, you're like, what? And goes, oh, that's something we say in New York.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who they are. They could be Italian, Irish, Black, Dominican, some mix of something. You know,
We all know it.
they all know it because it's a unique culture just to that area. That's always been that way because of the New Netherlands. And because they came from the Dutch West Indies Company and the Netherlands. And it's just a unique aspect of culture. And so these people who are supposedly like these great, all the network of Jewish bankers of like the late 1800s, early 1900s, you know, they were established in the 1700s trying to start a bank and blah blah blah. Like a lot of this really comes from these were people who were just a scattered enough people that you could go to another country and you knew where to find them. You went to the shul. They had to go there because they had to talk to God at least once a week. And so you go to the place, you look around enough. They usually look relatively, you know, somewhat uniform. There's usually something so you could tell what you're seeing. And you
Yeah.
go there and you all know all the same stories. Most importantly, you all know the same historical story. And that's what has changed. And like the Chinese Revolution, that all those people have lost their story. They're all dead. Those stories are in rivers.
Yeah, the Great Leap Forward killed so many monks and traditional kung fu artists. Yeah.
And let's just think about, I mean, even say when there's a reason why there's karate looks the way it does is because the earlier forms of it were practiced by men who all died in a war. So it became niche to know the quote unquote old forms. And it was because they had been, the memory was gone. You know, Korea, a lot of those people there that I mean, North Korea will their history is gone. It's totally gone. You know, the communism, socialism, the taking down of royals, this is ironed flat, culture after culture after culture. And their history gets to get retold to us by a bunch of union members who supposedly aren't fucking commies. But you know what's really important about history is that Plato was into trannies or something like that. He was like really gay, you know, whatever. You know that now everything is whittled down to their ideology, and the history of the world is shaped around their ideology rather than what we know about history should shape the ideology of the future because it is our living human past as best we know it, and we should adapt to it. We should
It's a scientific look. It's a scientific look at the world. Ignoring history is ignoring every mistake you've ever made and what you should do to fix it.
totally, and really, and as we say this, we don't even realize, you and I, that this might not be a concept that would have been accepted prior to Christianity becoming so widespread, because this is actually an argument. The prudence or prudentia is actually the idea of what the occultists call the Akashic record. It refers to wisdom, and wisdom is based on the memory of God. Only he remembers everything absolutely clearly. And one of the things that is then a great blessing is that we have a religion based specifically on written words, that it's incredibly important that we know what these words say and that our children know what the letters mean. And that all of this builds the mind. And over generations, it makes geniuses who end up putting satellites in the sky so that people don't die in storms. And it's a maximization of the blessings of just some Jew supposedly from Nazareth who said a few things. And they were written down, and now they're miraculous. And that keeps hitting me, that when the idea of there's two of us, and God and Jesus is always there because two of us are even discussing him. And that and that we end up from the Greek using the concept of he is the logos. Everything in the phenomenal universe has a logi. It has sort of an essence, but he is the essence of what a human is to be. That's what we really are. It's just that we simply are so lost and so trapped in this animal skins, as the Kabbalists like to put it, that even Adam then put on animal skins, and they said, no, that's your flesh. And I was like, huh. Like, that's a interesting way of putting it. It's like, no, you didn't hunger until you had this animal skin on what you really are. And I was like, that's wow, that's a good way of putting that. Because as a Christian, it made a lot of sense. God wouldn't have made a soul if he didn't want it to return to him. Jesus says repent or return. So therefore, God didn't make a throwaway soul. No, you can mess it up, but he didn't make it messed up. No. It's that this animal skin that's on it. That's it. That it messes up this other part of you, this faculty of that reason and logos and logic and the order and essence of things is supposed to. You don't see it, and you got to learn from Prudentia, and your elders will tell you how to see things more clearly, and the scriptures will point it out and buttress it, and every day it becomes more miraculous as I see communism and socialism decimate everything like a cancer and leave nothing but people walking across continents.
Oh, Jesus. Well, communism is really just a nihilistic view of the world. It really is about letting go of all that you believe to be good or right. It's a very depressing philosophy. Like everyone says, it's about love, it's about acceptance. No, it's more like about just nothingness. Because if nothing exists, nothing can hurt you. But also is very bland. It doesn't. Happiness involves having a polar opposite, and you have to have a little bit of pain, like a little bit of, well, this person is a doctor and I'm just a police officer, so he makes more than me. But then again, I'm fitter than him. You have to have, in order to have true happiness, you have to have the contrast of unhappiness. And communism is just about the idea that anytime that there's inequality, there is sadness. And sadness that's not okay. It's not okay to have a negative emotion. We need to make everybody equal, even if that means equally pounded into the ground and burned alive. As long as they're equally burned and they equally are dead to oppose us, that's all we need.
Yeah, dead men don't argue.
Yeah. Oh, geez, that is dark. But
and I mean that's and if somebody were to be given a short list of leaders, okay, dead men don't argue, and you go, okay, let's name major leaders that probably people know the name. And you'd say, do you think Che said that? And probably even most people are kind of socialist or democratic would say, I don't think he said that. Castro, they go, well, I could kind of believe it. You go, Stalin, oh yeah. It's just, you don't have to go terribly far through the list of socialists. And because I thought that might be actually a quote from him, and I'm just forgetting.
By the way, Che Guevara was unabashedly racist and
oh yeah, horrible person. Oh my God, Stefan Molyneux, the truth about Che Guevara. You just have to stop it every once in a while and be like, why do people what the fuck is wrong with people? It's just like, why? I thought I had flaws, but why do people like this ever exist? Like, yeah.
Well, I think it's because Che. Most people don't actually know Che. I think what they know is, oh, he's part of the system I already have decided I support. He's already one of them, the communists, the good people. Clearly, he's a handsome guy. Must handsome guy. My team fought against the evil white Europeans just by being white himself. Clearly, he's the guy I want. They literally see the t-shirts but that some pot smoking hippie is wearing, and then that's as far as the brain activity goes. It's not very. I think it's just a lack of nuance.
Yeah, and the idea of what a rebel. He was a rebel. You guys don't understand how rebellious he is, because you see, I'm rebellious because I have him on a shirt. you know, but was it I want to make sure not to let the story of the full JQ thing, like, because we still have to get to
Yeah.
this thing that is that's very real, that is Zionism and its various forms of Zionism. So when it comes to like that reference to bankers, sort of these international trading cartels and trading families. So these people would be trading diamonds, gold, silver, varieties of precious jewels, because that had become a specialty over hundreds of years. And then storing such, having security specialized, and having relationships with security, and that this would be a constant concern for them, in any Gentile nation, that they would always have to be worried, is somebody simply going to raid us because, well, we're up to Jewry again, and so then there's, with America and like and Britain, and living there, and in France post the revolution, you get the opportunity to have Jewish people who then enter, especially law, so that you then have the joke. It's a joke, but it's a joke because there's some part of it that's real.
Jewish
My cousin's a lawyer. My uncle does this. That people, they're constantly schmoozing and dropping, like, who does, but this is very important, who does what, not just my cousin's been to, he has this. Oh, this my uncle's really tall and buff, that it's really, no, they are functional. This is a thinking of a people who have practically been militarized.
Wow.
And it makes sense, because imagine when you look at what Moses did to the tribes, they were an army. They took down Jericho in a snap, and it doesn't go like the story in the Bible says, because we now have satellite imagery of footprints of hella people going straight from one city in Egypt en masse and going all the way to what once was Jericho.
My God.
And we could look down through the layers and see it. And so it's one of these things now that I'm like, yeah, it's that they were strong after a brutal period. And so I was thinking about this. If you were relatively theological at this time, say earliest 1900s, late 1800s, say even into the latest 1700s, 1780, 1790, that you're looking at the state of the various Jewish communities across Europe, and you're thinking, once the dome of the rock wasn't there, and that was all ours. All of it was ours. And you're sitting there and you're looking at your money in some German city. You're like, I could buy it all from those goddamn Arabs. And you're just thinking, like, if we just got together. And that's, I think, really what a lot of people allude to with the concept of conspiracy, because then there's the ugly truth about the ADL. It's a great book about the Jewish mafia. That then you get these people that, yeah, money is this and that and this, but it's also these people can't fuck with us if we have a land. None of these people can touch us if we have a land, because they all have a land and they can get over on us anytime they want. And we all know it. And we're living on pins and needles all the time. And we're still living like fucking, like we're about to get fucking showed. Fuck this. We're taking that fucking property back.
You mean Israel?
And I get it. I get it. I think I really try to sit there and think about like every massacre and pogrom, and then you look back and think of it like Tolkien. They didn't know what it looked like, but have you ever seen paintings from like back in the day of what supposedly the Temple of Solomon looked like?
It was like insane. Like everything was laced with gold. Everything was made of the finest rubies, the finest platinum. Everything was just supposed to be like, it would make Trump look poor.
They owned it all.
Oh. And so Solomon is kind of like that giant it's kind of like that cave that Smaug entered. Am I right?
You know, the thing is, I try to think about I haven't read enough of, okay, and you see, this is how bad I am, really, as far as biblical literacy. I'm still a baby when it comes.
You're way better than me. Don't worry.
It's just the lamentations of the oh my God, I can't believe Ecclesiastes, right? It's that it's Solomon as the priest, or as the yeah, right, and that he's, and it's it's all of his lamentations about his folly and his pride and his vanity and all that he has lost. And like one of the lines that's a favorite among Freemasons actually is when they in their some part of their third degree, that there's a reference to when the gold bowl cracks, as if like your mind finally gives and you start getting demented. The silver cord that would bind your robe falls, that you're so old and you're so dotardly that you can't even keep your robe closed. And that he's writing at that point in his life, and he's just lamenting. He could remember when he was huge and strong and could think quickly and on his feet. And all of this concentration that comes on to Solomon, and this, once a look at how great Solomon was, the wisest man. In Rastafarianism, Solomon, in Rasta music, Solomon comes up. One of the most common themes is something about Solomon. There's also in various heroes, because there's this Jezebel is another one. That's a very common tune from the Caribbean. The fallen hero of the Bible, and this is the vice that caused him to lose. And I get this, where they look back and they have influenced the world with these images of once we were great and now we are fallen. And that I could get it with the rich Zionists, that they're like, we are not fallen. No, we're and then the rabbis are like, the world still has another, like, I think they believe it's 2,000 or 3,000 years to go. So they're like, that we have to have Israel. That God can't complete the story, or he won't complete the story until we finish the work, and it has to be done in Israel. And the work is to return the world back to him. And they can't be a light unto the world until they are in Jerusalem. And all that stuff that, I mean, if I was wealthy, wealthy people, they have their dreams too.
Yeah.
And they probably pass that on to son after son, that it's like, don't turn your back on this idea. One day, all it takes is every piece of land was bought You know, that's that. Or, I mean, in the Jewish sense of the word, of the concept, and to some degree, you know, everything's bought. It's bought with blood. It's bought with money. And you know, Abraham had to buy Sarah's tomb, and that establishes the entire concept of land is worth money, and it's worth silver. And so that you know, that's one of the oldest concepts we have now. And I get it, where they're looking back and they're like, we remember all this. You know, we were there. We are going to take that shit back, because this religion of the Arabs has only been around for this long, and it was invented by some crazy pervert. You know, and you know, and you know, boom. You know, and that's why and they influenced Christianity, really, I think, a lot of times, not just through conversion, because there's actually groups of people, like one, if you ever look up the name, if you look up in Wikipedia, the Sabbatnik movement, that was a type of Christian conversion movement. Jews converted to Christianity, but a very specific type. They were called Sabbatniks. And I did not know this until I knew a guy whose last name was Sabbatnik, and I was like, "Oh, that's really weird." And then I just came up in a Wikipedia thing about Judaism, and I was like, "What?" You know. So there's various groups that they converted. Mexico and New Spain had a lot of converted Jews. That's why a lot of the more spooky Santeria and images of hands with saints on them and all that. That's why that's so commonplace there.
Santeria is also a big thing in Latin America, like and sometimes it's even fused with voodoo.
Yeah, and it's just that in Judaism there's a different sense of it's you try to do holy things how you can. This is once again the Tikkun Olam, you know, that everything can be made so that it's kosher and holy. And if you do that, and you pray, you know, and that you do good things, it'll hopefully return those sparks. They'll take the shards, turn them into sparks, and the sparks are light, and they return back to the source of the light. And it's I get it. We even get this in a lot of our Disney fantasies and a lot of our cartoons. You know, it's anime. You know, this has all popped up, you know, over the last 20 years in various forms, because it coincides with kind of thinking like magic in a way. But when it becomes when it merged with the ideologies of Marx, and and then there's the weird end of it, that anything could be made sacrosanct, or that the world is broken, why try? That comes out of the Kabbalah of like Shabbatai Zvi, where they reverse blessings. They're like, no, we need to make sure the world is totally broken. And then only God can set order again.
So their idea is order out of chaos.
Well, they will cause chaos because they basically have faith that God will then end the world to set I don't even understand the Shabbat. Those, I mean, I do in a way. It makes sense. You could understand it's total nihilism. It's obviously nihilism. Like even Buddhism identified this. They identified there's a way of thinking that coincides with self-denial to the point where it's really painful, and that this is a nihilistic drive to destroy, and because you have nothing to destroy, you destroy yourself, and hoping you will be saved, desperately wanting somebody outside of you to see that you're being destroyed, and that you need saving. And this is a whole realm of Kabbalah that especially ties in. A lot of people say it is the stuff that people like Crowley, or that woman, her book is like right within Blavatsky, those types, that they were also interested in the dark side of it. So a lot of that is this idea of total nihilism, and then eventually that you do things that would be averse to the order of God, such as anal sex, or sharing your wife with like a room full of men,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And we now associate that especially with the ideas of it. Was it that movie with Tom Cruise?
Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, and we think of it as, oh, there's this ritual culture in among the elite, and I would of course say, well, that would be the only group who could do such things, because if you look into a lot of, like, from just looking into secret societies, they have a lot of stuff you buy. They got cuffs, and they got like necklaces, and they got like books, and they got
Yeah.
like all kinds of stuff. I mean, like, you got dues.
There's a gift shop attached to almost every Mason Lodge, I bet.
I love that. That's great. The gift shop. Oh my God, that's great. If some Mason sees this, they'll laugh about that one, because that is a joke among them. I don't know if you, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard them do that one on like podcasts. Said, and here is the gift shop, and I'm like, what? And they all laugh, and I'm like, okay, apparently that's an inside joke, and it took me a while to figure out like what they were talking about.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Come on. Hello?
So I'm wondering, because you were born in the 90s,
Yeah.
what was communism and a lot of this, like the Jewish community, socialism and communism and stuff like that? Like, how did your generation become so damn based?
I think what it was is, let me say it like this. One of the things that people forget is that there's an old phrase. Every everything shall be revealed in time. I think it's a Bible verse. I don't remember exactly how it is. But do you know which one I'm talking about? It basically says that time will like reveal all things.
Reveals all things. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So the thing is that in, I think, my generation, the reason why we're so based is because communism is something that if you don't get going right away and you slowly subvert a society, it becomes so overly complicated to maintain, you start to see through the cracks. And my generation grew up loving communism in high school, but they only could control us until high school. And I think what it is that when reality set in, the globalists had so many different pieces moving on the board that Robert Greene even has a strategy about war, with this called, concentrate your forces. Having too many players on the chessboard will only cause mayhem on your side. So they unfortunately had so many heavy taxes and so many things that gave us a reality of, oh, this isn't free. Therefore, I have to get a job and pay for it. As well as the fact that we had to directly deal with, say, the whole, white people are evil kind of mentality. There were so many pieces on the board that after a while, my generation wasn't like the boomers. The boomers only had to deal with the ideas of, like, especially during the fucking 60s when they were trying to make divorce seem all nice. I don't know if you saw Black Pill's video about it. It was very good, showing how there were so many movies out there making divorce seem as easy as just, breaking up with a month-long girlfriend.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But the boomers had so much going right for them, and communism and its ideologies and the globalist agenda were so low-key, and they were so monolithic that it was easy to manage. It was easy. Hey, boomers, look, there's this idea we got. You should all pay a tax to make sure when you retire, everything seems okay. We're also going to take from the younger generation, and don't worry, they'll never collect on it, so you'll get most of it, but don't worry. by that time they can't complain, you know. And then you look at the 70s and 80s, same thing. Few more pieces entered the board, you know, like, you know, foreign groups to try to impoverish the native population, because when people are poor, they depend on the powerful, i.e., politicians who want to grow the government bigger, you know. It. But then by the time you got to the 90s, then a few people started to notice, hey, why is it that our culture is all about buy this one product from this other company that's competing with another company, of which are both owned by the same parent company, and that owns 90% of everything? Don't talk to your friends. That's what the internet is for. Why are we so consumerist? They started adding in things like social justice and equality. And of course, they played on the heartstrings of save the women. You know, then they started going after race baiting. They had so many cards on the board. And then the internet just fucking flipped everything on its head. We were, I think, the first generation that grew up with the internet and grew up with the good internet, not the, oh my God, Floyd, Steve, um, Leonard, come here. I just sent an email. Oh my God, this is amazing. You know, we were the generation that grew up with, I hate to say it, but Pornhub. You don't get very good porn until you actually get. You don't have good internet until you got good porn. It's not that I promote porn. I think it's disgusting. But we had the first generation of high-speed internet information. So all of a sudden, all the cracks that were on these moving pieces that were so hard to control, like they really overplayed their hand, were just in our face. You could in a second find whatever you wanted. And the worst part is they put the boomers in charge of keeping us sedentary. They put the generation that was the easiest to manipulate and probably the least clever, I think. No offense to most boomers. I don't hate you. You guys are so out of touch. They said, I want you guys to be the teachers who will send these students to go to these specific websites on the internet to find their research, and tell them that TV is still awesome. Tell them that, you know, this is how the world works. They were so ignorant of, you know, how bad of a decision that was, that it was almost impossible for it to go right. You know, this would be like me trying to run for governor in one night, and all of a sudden I have to like get everything that Walker would do over the course of a few years done in only a few hours. You know, not only did they heavily overplay their hand, they overplayed it at the worst possible time. Now we have cryptocurrencies, mean we could go around the normal banking system. Now we have so many online ways of saying, fuck going to college, I'll go and Skillshare, and I'll become a musician. I'll be a graphic designer, or I'll go to trade school and learn a skill. Everything the globalists had built up, these institutions that they had built for the boomers, that the boomers said, oh yes, well, we will take that. Thank you so much. Oh, your higher taxes, property taxes, massive divorce. Oh yes, we will have some more of that. Thank you so much. All these things that are so outdated and so overgrown, you know, and centrally planned, just like China and all of its horrible building structures, finally came toppling down when people like us got the internet. So I think that's why we're so woke. I think it's because we have seen the skeleton and the bones of the whale after it swallowed us. And we didn't have what Geppetto had. We didn't have like a little tiny little fire. We had a fucking machine gun. And this thing was about to die. You know, it had gotten so big and so overblown. There was no way we couldn't be woke. So yeah, that's what I think it is. I think it's just, we have seen the future and it doesn't work. We have seen this ridiculous idea that we should pay into a Ponzi scheme for our retirement that we'll never be able to collect on, and we'll be paying up for like the later generations. We've seen that. And we're like, fuck that. We've seen the ridiculously underqualified and yet overpaid college teachers and institutions. All we had to do was just go on Google. Oh, how much does it cost? Wait, what? And what's the job placement like? Oh, that's dog shit. So yeah, I'm sorry I keep going on about this, but I just think that so many people don't realize that it was arrogance and hubris that really fucked the pro-socialist equality everywhere, environmentalist, drink soy at every meal kind of people. They were so arrogant that they had so many chessboard pieces moving, and they didn't realize that the internet was that animal you can never tame.
I gotta admit, I definitely agree with you on that idea of so many chess pieces, because that's obviously to a great extent what we saw when I gotta give it up to you guys. 2013 with Gamergate and Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn, and then that atheist woman with coffee elevator gate, Rebecca Watson. And then
yeah.
guys, yeah. And all these guys then putting on the fucking, atheist Templar mantle, putting on white with a big A+ on it. And like, I will come to your aid, fair maiden, and I gotta admit, the best person who's ever done that, I have to give him credit, because it always runs through my mind whenever I think of a white knight.
I know you're talking about it.
Mike Enoch.
Oh,
Mike Enoch, one time somebody talked shit to a woman, and somebody on the stream was like, oh, don't say that to, some like, oh, y'all talking to a woman, like they really did it. They really did like react in a way like, oh, you can't talk that way to a woman, and Mike Enoch, you could be heard over everybody shouting and talking shit, and you could see him, and he totally pumps his arms like a fucking Mario Brothers character. He goes, I will come to your rescue, fair maiden. And it was the fucking funniest shit. I lost it. I was in fucking tears. It was so funny. And everybody was shouting like crazy. And just every time I think about him, I'm like, God damn it, that was so fucking funny. And that's like it's almost like, I swear there's stuff. One of the things about YouTube that's bad is that you'll never have it like SNL outtakes online unless Kronos or one of them catches it, but like the fact that you got to see like the housing thing fall apart. Then all these people are saying the banks. All these people are going to war. And I'm betting that to some part of your mind, you're like, is this war thing going to get worse? Because none of the people who are supposed to be responsible seem to really give that much of a shit, because no one's talking about it. No one's acting like a war is happening and, maybe not consuming things to make it easier to afford the war. Like I totally could imagine how one part of your mind, you were in school and they're telling you, oh, and everyone sacrificed during World War II. Everybody was really into it, and they all like would do the jitterbug every night, dancing for the boys overseas, and stuff. And, and even the black people were into it, and everyone sacrificed. No one even had chewing gum, and then you're like, wait, we're in a war with how many countries? Like, you're probably like 14 at the time. Like,
yeah.
Wait, so by the time I graduate high school, how many fucking countries are we going to be at war with? And it's, I would imagine it must just be like, what are you people doing? Like,
and I think the worst part is like, this is the shit that made them, is why the Guten Press was such a thing. Think about it. Like, I think it really is that, at some points, the government always tries to catch up to whatever new invention that can distribute information, because it's not always about how much information you can get out. It's sometimes also about how quickly. Because if you can get it out quickly in its true state, it's hard to undo that. You know, it's like when it's like if you don't manage to keep your kids out of the bedroom when you're fucking their wife, their mom. Yeah, just once that cat's out of the bag.
Whoa, bam. Heyo.
Oh, hi.
Keeping it spicy. Keeping it spicy.
Yeah. Dad, why do you have a go mask on? But
they were wrestling.
Yeah. Well, you were wrestling. You know, we were wrestling. You know, wrestling. It's a bit different.
But yeah, I know what you are correct that once the truth has been set out there, that it is so instantaneously generally plausible. And then you could say, okay, well, I want as much backup information on this as possible. But if there's lies, a deception can have, multiple feints, multiple levels, like an onion of deception, so that you keep peeling back, trying to find, like, what exactly is this? And by the end of it, you've got a table full of shit that's making your eyes water. So whatever you found, well, you're crying. And so it is like truth is instantaneous. Like, oh, look, it is what it is. Well, that's nice. And like the whole thing with Khashoggi is a magnificent example. Obviously something happened, but the sheer level of that now Tayyip Erdogan is addressing the UN. No, I'm sorry. He did an op-ed for Washington Post.
What?
Like today, I think today or yesterday.
They wanted to
talk. Yes, to talk about Khashoggi. Because believe me, I tell all of you great American people, I do not hate you anymore. You see, we are always friends. NATO, straight up homie. Saudi Arabia, not so good. He's not so good. No, he killed Khashoggi. I tell you, he did. I am Erdogan, and you can trust me because journalists love me. It's just,
yeah.
Really, I'm very well trusted in my country.
He's trying to search for a reason. Like, why should I date you when I have these big natural tits? And if his response is like,
"That's no, that's where Trump's at." He's like, "I think this Turkish chick is actually a man and small tits. I don't mean to be insulting."
Yeah. Also, and she constantly bleeds from her eyes and from her whatever.
It's like at this stage, Trump is like, "I would much rather speak to the Russians because, I mean, look at the ladies. Turkey, no, that's not going to happen." It's like and actually, some of your listeners should know that actually one of the reasons I kind of joke about the idea of that Trump is actually trying to make is like big time mega overtures, and it's going to be like Russia and America, we are homies again, and it's because the only thing America could do to keep the Pacific is be friends with Russia and rearm Japan. That's the only way we have the Pacific, or otherwise China will either outpace us or they'll collapse, and both are bad. So we have to make sure Russia is cool with us being in their Pacific waters, and that we absolutely will help sea lane issues alongside them. And all of the whole part of the military that keeps menacing Putin is really a leftover from operations that are mostly coming out of the Pentagon, from everything I've heard from people who are smarter than me. And Erdogan tried to play both sides. then we try to play him both ways. And here's a great way of understanding how NGOs work into this.
Yeah.
We had NGOs court Kurdish Sufis from a very specific group. This group was then, we lobbied Turkey to allow the imams from that group of Sufis to be on the official government council of religion, or religious expertise, whatever it is. Well, this was a big sticking point. And I found this in Wikipedia because I had a feeling about Sufis because of stuff that I researched before. So I looked into it and I'm like, okay, we were trying to play some kind of game, getting people who are ideologically and strategically along what we liked. We were trying to infiltrate their government. And when the coup happened, the idea is, now I've heard a number of different things. I've heard Jordan gave us up and said, they're about to kill you, get the fuck out of Turkey. Or Russia said, they're about to kill you, get the fuck out of Turkey, or something, somebody that's, even though,
that was Schwarzenegger.
I know, totally. But run, get the fuck out of Turkey. But it was,
you're still here.
Why are you still here? Oh my God. Well, and so that's why my joke is about that, because nobody outside of Germany is really like, oh, this makes perfect fucking sense having Turkey in NATO. Like, nobody any longer, in Italy especially, gets it. They're like, these motherfuckers are playing us. These fucks are letting people, fuck them. And it's only because of the way we've structured NATO that we have too many people in different countries in NATO who are just really into the globalism thing. And it's only because of the way we structured NATO. And so that's in my way of encompassing it, and that Trump is trying to appoint people to diplomatic positions to undo this network. But
this epic stupidity.
Democrats still exist, and cuck conservatives are still floating around, and
I like the way you say floating around, like they're just floating around like old men, like ghosts going through, like
totally like fucking ghouls in fucking Fallout 4, and they're like, that's a good idea, get it. Oh man, 10 rads, what the hell,
here's the funniest thing about this. First off, let's talk about like how I talked. How you asked me and I responded about why it is that my generation is so woke, which I always found woke to be a bit of a strange phrase. Just due
totally.
to it did start off originally as kind of something people made fun of.
Totally.
They made fun of the left for saying, "Yo, we're so woke," to being honest and real. And then all of a sudden now everybody uses it. So I guess that's the one meme the left didn't fuck up.
I know, right? Totally.
The left can't meme, except if it's on accident.
We will take that meme. It is very, very effective.
Yes. Well, we shall set it until we understand it. And instead of releasing no meme, we simply release documentary about meme, call it racist. You understand? No.
Wait, so wait, so what was the other reason you were saying that your generation's so based?
Oh, because I think that there's a good phrase from Robert Greene, and like I said, I know I mention him a lot on this stream, but honestly, I think he is one of the best authors today of nonfiction. I was never into the huge intellectuals. I read them all the time, but I always found them so vacuous and so much like huffing their own farts. Even like the one who wrote Rules for Radicals. I can't remember his name. Dostoevsky, something like that.
Oh, Saul Alinsky.
Solinsky. Saul Alinsky. I want to pronounce that correctly. Yeah, even him, I found a bit insufferable. I just found him to kind of be one of those people who I don't know how much real world experience he's actually had, and it just smelled like he was like, here's how you write rules radicals. At some points, you just listen to these run-on sentences and these non-stop ends. But I like Robert Greene because he's just he is as base as of an author as they come. His whole book, The 33 Strategies of War, Mastery, Seduction, The 48 Laws of Power, The 50th Law, and his new book, which I'm going to definitely get, The Laws of Human Nature. They are basically books just telling you straight out, I'm not going to tell you how you should live your life. I'm just going to tell you this is how humans work. This is how,
yeah.
this is reality. This is not me philosophizing. This is just me being a no bullshit. It's kind of person. And he talks about how power dynamics are real. You know, you get a tribe, they're going to have, there's going to be an alpha, there's going to be an omega, you know, and you can't ignore them, because if you do, you're going to get used by someone who doesn't. You know, with warfare, there's always going to be wars in the world, so you might as well be educated. You know, mastery, learning how to find your profession, your skill, you know, whatever it might be. Seduction, you know, pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, one of the things he said was that, you know, most power comes from necessity. That, you know, the greatest entrepreneurs in the world came from a very dark and painful place. You know, what was his name? King Louis the 14th, I believe it was, the Sun King, the one who united France into a much more organized system, had seen what the previous kings had done and said, nope, France was essentially in ruin before he got there. Afterward, it was ruled with an iron fist. He ruled out of necessity, but his children, from his grandson, and then his grandson's grandson, every single time became worse and worse and more weak. In fact, there was a phrase, I don't remember how it goes, but it translates to after me, then France. But the meaning behind it is, today you would say, the phrase would be let's let Paris rot, because of because he was spoiled. He never really had much. Even even Alexander the Great had to outshine his completely belligerent father, who drank a lot, hoard everywhere, and stuff like that. That's why he was so ambitious. So you look at us millennials, and I would even say some people in Gen X, but mostly millennials and Gen Z, because, you know, I'm 22. We came from a place where culture was kind of dead. It was basically the philosophy of Fight Club, but real. You know, like how Fight Club is about, like, people trying to get away from emasculating consumerism. You know, men don't stop being men. They just don't become men correctly, is all. You know.
That's a great way of putting that. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Clip that.
Yeah, exactly. T-clips.
T-clips.
Swedish mate, something, you know. But men don't stop being men. They just become poor men, you know, broken versions of men. Instead, they'll become gangbangers, or they will be incels that drive vans into people in Toronto. They will be they will find an outlet for what they care about. And so we came from that. We came from this vacuous, watch this reality show about these people who are famous, but you didn't hear about them until just now. Kind of culture. And from these ridiculous baby boomers who thought that we honestly would just see television and be like, well, that seems correct. You know, forget that we grew up with the greatest bullshit detector in the world, Wi-Fi. you know, it just you know, we came from a very lonely place, a place where there was nothing. That's why so many millennials feel lost today. And so you look at it, and then we kept getting told the same things by the same people that had already told us everything that didn't work. And then we started peeling back that bullshit onion that you mentioned earlier about lie after lie. And the more we peeled back and saw that it was a lie, we're like, no, keep going. Let's find out how far the rabbit hole really goes. How far up our assholes has this globalist dildo gone already?
And then at some point you end up with Jim and his notorious Sweetie Squad outing all the deviants in the fucking universe.
Yeah.
lurking in the bowels of the internet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, I have some disagreements with Jim, you know, with Medicare. And there has been, I had Short Fat Taku on last week. We talked about Jim becoming super paranoid, like with the whole Sargon thing, because now he's trying to make things that have nothing to do with anybody seem like they're related. Like he went after V saying, "Oh, V, I hate your team." And he was like, "Well, what exactly did I do? What can you name exactly what I did?" And of course, all Medicare just did, it was just guilt by association. But that's irrelevant. I just thought that was a funny thing to watch. But regardless, yes, you end up with people calling Pepe the Frog a white supremacist symbol. You know, because they realize, you know, we can take your guns, we can take your money, we can take a lot of things for you, but it will never last if you can always say no, if you can always vocalize disagreements, if you can always be free to think what you like. We will always know that we've built a house on sand as a tidal wave comes in instead of on rocks. So that's why you get people honestly thinking that these stupid boomers who honestly grew up not realizing that half of what they were being told was wrong, thinking that, oh well, if we just have CNN say, well, this symbol is bad, people will believe us. They will submit. They will stop using it. It has worked in the past. You know, back when we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
So imagine that. Imagine trying to tell someone like me, my age, you know, we should have more Africans. You mean African Americans? Why are you saying we should not abort them? I mean, that's fine with me. No, I mean, we should have more Somalis. Why? Like, well, I'm Rachel Maddow. I know these things.
Totally.
But wait a minute, they're gonna move in my neighborhood. I don't have like a stable job. I grew up without a culture. My parents divorced because you people encouraged that, so I always felt alone. Yeah, but come on. Yeah, but no. Yeah, but okay, hold on, Google. Fuck you.
I know, yeah. Let me look up this Somalia real fast. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. At some point, it's like poking an injured animal, but not shooting it in the head. You know, if it will just wait until it gets so pissed and the wounds to its legs and to its mouth are healed. It won't care if you poked it in the eye or anywhere else. The only thing it wants to heal is the parts that are going to rip your face off. Yeah. And that's the thing about communism. You look at full-blown communist nations, you know, I hate to say this because I hate communism, but they do it right. Like they're not like, we'll try to, you know, convince you by controlling the media, which they do to everyone who's still alive. But that's the key thing, to everyone who they didn't massacre, everyone who didn't vocalize. That's what they do. But they know when you have instantaneous information, you gotta stop. You gotta start capping some motherfuckers. So,
Well,
it's horrible.
actually, I've wondered something, how this resonates with you. What is the deal with zombies?
Zombies?
And like the idea of like a whole generation being raised like with like various forms of zombies being like the key bad guy. Like this didn't exist in my time. It was like sci-fi, like Blade Runner, and I mean the Matrix was kind of the big splash of my time, Ghost in the Shell, various anime, stuff like that. So zombies were sort of like a thing that was in B horror movies. And I've wondered, like, have you ever thought about, like, has that ever hit you? Like, how the fascination with that, yeah.
It has, and actually, I think I know why. Here's why. So think about this. We have, a vampire is cool, like Dracula, like old school, non-sparkling, loving Bella Dracula. The kind of Bram Stoker shapeshifter, the one who smells good, the one who looks good, the one who asks a nice, beautiful lady to let him in. And when she does, she turns her back for a second.
Dun, dun, dun.
He cuts her throat open and starts drinking her blood and kills her husband. And turns her into one of his brides. many brides, and he's got this thick Eastern European accent. No, that's a cool lore. But I think what it is that we are so disconnected from the outer world. From gun hunting was more common for youth before my generation. People would like cry if their parents didn't let them go outside. It was normal to be connected with nature and the outer world, but we don't have that as much. But then you look at some of the things that we do enjoy. For instance, Halloween, the original John Carpenter story, except, changed a few times, but whatever. That is still a really popular series when it comes on. The new one is really good. And the reason why is because there's something so primal about, someone who doesn't talk. They don't give a reason for what they do. They just kill. And they're like a super strong, nuts, like berserk, 6'8" towering force of nature. When you look at it, a lot of the most popular movies amongst millennials are about primal things. They're about things like, for instance, a zombie is like it's like a mutated person. It's very primal to fight humans. But at the same time, if you take out the human side of it, like their emotions, and they're just eat flesh, yeah. It almost feels even better because it feels like survival. And we, I think, as humans, have lost so much of the sense. Like nowadays, we don't go out, to dance with the lovely ladies at the ball. Oh, hey, what's up, Crunch, or some one named dude in like wearing a leather jacket with a greased back hair in the 50s or something. Hey, bro, come on, we're gonna go to the club and get our groove on. That's not what we do on Friday nights anymore. Now it's, hi, I'm gonna smoke some weed, Netflix, and chill and fuck off. So when you do that, you lose that sense of who you are. I mean, think about it. The school system is so sanitized that even if you're fighting back, when someone is physically punching you in the face, you're now just as responsible as the dude physically attacking you. You can't kick their ass.
Yeah.
The work environment is sanitized. Everything is so sanitized that I think it's that zombies are the primal instinct of fighting other humans like we've done with warfare for so many years, combined with an animal-like behavior. Like the idea of a predator, like the idea, you're outrunning this swarm, you're surviving this scary, scary thing. And it's not magic, it's like, oh, I was once a count in Transylvania, and then I got these powers. No, it's just survival. It feels more it feels more real. It feels more primal. And also, the zombies are almost like a background decoration in a way. Like, if you notice, like, Batman stories, Batman, the reason why people like a lot of the modern Batman stories is we know Batman's going to win. That's not really why we're playing the games or watching the show. We know he's going to win. But it's really more of a way of setting up Batman asking himself, is what I'm about to do moral? Same thing with zombies. The zombies are more like a survival primal way of just telling a story about human nature. It's not even, most zombie movies are survival movies. And when you see that, you see people having like political constructions, like, like in The Walking Dead, the survivors, like, the saviors, the wolves, all these different factions. The entertainment comes from watching the characters survive, seeing that thing that we're always told doesn't exist, men and women, we're equal, there is no hierarchy. Well, you watch The Walking Dead, and 90% of the entertainment comes from the politics. Sure, Game of Thrones is fun to watch with dragons and naked people having sex, swords fights, and culture, but most people actually love the characters. So I guess that's why. I guess it really is that maybe we've just lost connection with a much more honest and no bullshit world. We live in the world of processed foods, voyeurs for girlfriends. Everything is offensive except for being a mindless drone when you're at work. And white people, you don't have a culture. You never did. Well, what do you think will probably spark people's interest more? A weird, bizarre fantasy story or a story about survival?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I know.
And actually, I gotta say that was perfect, because at this point, my eyes are floating, and I've got to I've got to hit the John and start getting ready to go to sleep. So but you kind of nailed also. I mean, like yeah, it's about survival.
Yeah,
A lot of yeah. All right.
Wait, before you go,
yeah,
I do want the culture to come back. And you want to know what I think we should do? I think the culture should be the campers, the handmade, do-it-yourself kind of people. I think that's what American culture should be. I think it should be based on the pillars of family, the pillars of, this is a house, not a motel, so you can't just come and go. And finally, the idea that we are the pioneers, the rebirth of the philosophy of Lewis and Clark, of going out and exploring the unknown. I hate to say it, but I think I have a little bit of a hipster in me, not because, I'll school you on coffee, but because I just like handmade stuff. I think that's really something we should bring back.
I actually, I gotta admit, I have been very, very encouraged by seeing sites like Etsy do so well, because there's so much stuff on there that I'll just look up some odd item, like real fine chainmail, like that people can use in actual like dueling schools exists, and there's somebody who makes it, and like it's all by hand. It's got to be done by hand, and you're right. That's going to be a huge, that and strange, unique forms of customization of products.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a thing. I've actually thought that one of the things nobody's really thinking about with robots, everyone wants a Pikachu. Whether it throws lightning or not. I mean, to have a Pikachu go to the fridge for you and grab you a cold soda pop and come back and be like, Pika, Pika, and then just stay there. That'd be great. I mean, and this is, people will have their R2 unit, but it will be some probably oddball looking emoticon thing or something, I mean, like, that's honestly what I think. I'm like, oh no, Groiper won't die. People will make a robot Groiper, and Groiper will have all kinds of awesome dank memes that he'll spit out. Maybe, it won't be Alexa. You go, Groiper, What's blah 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 up to? He says, don't bother him. All right, thank you. You know,
Well,
it's like just read your text back to you. You know, it's like it'll be great. You know, get
well,
you a
you
cold soda pop.
well, for me personally, I would have a genetically engineered bio Pikachu who was just very good at being a pack animal and being trainable, just so I could still. But I would still have so what kind of what you were saying earlier, except it would just be kind of more of a Jarvis like computer that would just talk to me through the walls, and I specifically name it Alfred and have it be voiced by Jeremy Irons. Yeah, like Alfred, turn on the fridge. Yes, sir. Would you like anything else? I have your bat suit in the bat cave.
Totally, dude. All right.
I know you gotta go, man. So I'm gonna stop the broadcast now. But hey, it's always fun to stream with you. And hey, please everybody subscribe to Donovan Warland. He is a beast. He honestly half the things we talked about tonight I knew a lot about, but he gave me so many things I hadn't was just so not only subscribe to his channel, but Donovan, I'm definitely putting this on Anchor, which is where I post my podcast, so they can go on iTunes, Chatterbait, and wait, not Chatterbait, what the fuck, and Stitcher and stuff like that. So I'll see you later, man.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.